This is my first time at Davos, and I find it quite a bewildering experience, to be honest. I mean, 1,500 private jets have flown in here to hear Sir David Attenborough speak about, how we're wrecking the planet. And I hear people talk in the language of participation and justice and equality and transparency. But then, almost no one raises the real issue of tax avoidance, right? And of the rich just not paying their fair share. It feels like I'm at a firefighters conference and no one's allowed to speak about water, right? there was only one panel, actually.
Well, we've had two. You're the second of our panelists.
There was only one panel.
Let's go there.
One panel hidden away in the media center that was actually about tax avoidance. Yeah. I was one of the 15 participants. So something needs to change here. 10 years ago, the World Economic Forum asked the question, what must industry do to prevent a broad social backlash? The answer is very simple. Just stop talking about philanthropy and start talking about taxes. Taxes. We need to... just 2 days ago, there was a billionaire in here, what's his name? Michael Dell. And he asked the question like, name me one country where a top marginal tax rate of 70% has actually worked. And, I'm a historian. The United States, that's where it has actually worked. Exactly. In the 1950s, during Republican President Eisenhower, the war veteran, the top marginal tax rate in the US was 91% for people like Michael Dell. The top estate tax for people like Michael Dell was more than 70%. This is not rocket science. We can talk for a very long time about all these stupid philanthropy schemes. We can invite Bono once more, but come on, we got to be talking about taxes. Yeah, exactly. That's it, taxes, taxes, taxes. All the rest is bullshit, in my opinion.
You're a historian. What would it take, and does history suggest it's possible, to make it so that 5 years from now, when we will have made some headway?
Yeah. Well, the lessons of history are pretty depressing, to be honest. So the times that we've seen that we managed to reduce inequality radically, were during times of war. That's what's the most effective way. Now, I'm obviously not suggesting we should start a war here. But what we do need is what the philosopher William James 100 years called the moral equivalent of war. And I believe that the challenge of climate change can be exactly that. So we need to realize that we are standing, at a point in history as a species that we just don't have much time left. And what we need is a new Green Deal, I believe. Look at the experience of France. So what happened in France is that you had this whole yellow vest movement after, a tax on petrol, if I'm correct. And then an explosion of protests broke out. A French CEO explained to me this week that actually the most important reason for all of these protests was the abolition of the wealth tax in France. So, it's not rocket science. What we need are way higher taxes on the wealthy so that we can actually fund this green transition to a much better planet. But, the scale of the challenge is so radical is that, again, it will never be solved by just the private sector alone or just by words alone or by philanthropy. We really need to start to realize that we need something like the moral equivalent of a war.